Hi guys, welcome back to Matt Chat. This is episode number 22, in which I cover one of my favorite adventure games of all time, ICOM Simulation's Deja Vu. If you're not familiar with this game, I wouldn't be surprised. For some weird reason, these games haven't got nearly the credit they deserve. Not nearly the attention, and it's really surprising because they are so innovative and so ahead of their time. The Deja Vu, Nightmare Comes True, was released in 1985, just a year after the introduction of the Macintosh, the classic Macintosh, the first computer to hit the market with a full-on mouse-driven graphical user interface with windows and icons and the trash can that we're all so familiar with today. And what's really fascinating, I think, about Deja Vu and the games that followed it were how the developers were able to incorporate a similar interface, or at least the same concepts, into their interface. So what we end up with is an adventure game with a first-person perspective that utilizes the windows and icons and so on that were popularized, of course, by the Macintosh. These games did originate on the Macintosh, although, as we'll see, they were widely ported, and there are also several other games in the series. The big three are, of course, Uninvited and Shadowgate, and then Deja Vu 2. Hopefully I'll get a chance to talk about those, as well as some games that followed. Before we get started with Deja Vu, I wanted to send out a quick shout-out to some good friends who have been commenting and making responses. Of course, Mark Vergier, really good friend of mine from the Netherlands, really cool guy. Nate Great 321, he's a new friend. I really like his videos. Maximum RD, Richard Elwood, Marcus Malone, Rowdy Rob, The Joy of Sticks, Yakumo, Axiom of Discord, Skate Blind 007, C Crossfan, T Gaskell, and Maximum Madrika. These are guys that have really been making comments for a while. I really appreciate those. Like reading what they have to say. I also have another little thing I wanted to put in here. I've got two bookmarks here. One is from Vintage Games. As you can see, you may or may not be able to see, it's signed by Bill LaJudas. I will, of course, add my signature to this. And then also a bookmark for Dungeons and Desktops, which will also be signed. So these are the prizes in the contest. The contest is as follows. I'm about to turn around. Now, when I turn around, you'll see something printed on my t-shirt. If you're the first person to comment saying where that's from or what that's a reference to, I'll mail you these bookmarks. They're all yours. You can use them to track your progress as you read our books. All right, here we go. Hopefully you're able to see that with all the hair. If not, what can I say? Here we go. All right then, without further ado, let's play Deja Vu. Of course, we're going to begin with the original Macintosh version, of course, the game that got it all started. And as you can already see, we've got a windowed interface. You can do things like click and drag items from this exploration window in the middle over to your inventory. There I am already having to resize the thing. There is a problem with the interface, the resolution being what it is. You're always having to sort of move these windows around, scroll the contents around to get at all these different items you can carry in lots of different containers. That's probably the most challenging thing as far as the interface is concerned. But it's still very straightforward. For the most part, the interface knows if you are clicking to open a door or to go out and exit or to examine something. It's remarkably intuitive. Now, personally, I think these black and white graphics go very well with this setting and this storyline. This is, after all, film noir. This is based on all those old black and white hard-boiled detective movies. And even though it's in black and white, there are the occasional sound effect. And if you're not ready for these, they can shock the heck out of you. After hours of total silence playing this, to hear something like that can sometimes shake you up. This was really put to good use in Uninvited, which I'll talk about later. Now, obviously, I don't want to give too much of the story away, but the idea is you've lost your memory. You don't know who you are, where you are, or what you're doing there. Eventually, you'll start to put the pieces together and figure out that somebody has set you up. You're being framed for a murder, and it's really interesting how you get out of this situation. Again, I don't, it'd be silly for me to give it away. You should really play this game for yourself and see what happens. But even if you're not very good at adventure games, you'll probably get pretty far in this game before you have to start consulting hints. To me, it made a lot of sense, especially if you use your imagination and again, think about those old detective movies. That said, this is a game that will kill you frequently. This was well before Ron Gilbert came along and made it uncool for adventure games to kill you left and right. And it's often quite unfair. Maybe you'll just go into an area and be killed before you even know what happened. So it is always a good idea to save often and regularly. Just for the sake of comparison, I have here the Atari St and Amiga versions of this game, ports that came about a year afterwards. And you can see the color does make a difference. I won't lie, it does make certain parts of the game easier. You can tell that a pool is a pool of water instead of a pool of blood and so on. On the other hand, you still have these very cluttered up windows that can be a problem. Of the two, I'm a little partial to the Amiga version. It just seemed to run a little better. Seemed a little bit smoother somehow. But either one of these versions would be fine. They were quite popular, and a lot of people enjoyed them. Now here we have Uninvited, which was another of the MacVentures games. Of course, this is the Macintosh version shown here. Very, of course, identical interface, but this time we have a horror theme. Whereas Deja Vu is the detective game, this is the horror game of the era, and it was quite frightening at the time. I remember playing this game, being quite scared. Not just the lightning, but there's lots of ghosts and spiders and creepy things in this game. It's kind of looking at it now, it seems hard to believe this game could scare you, but believe me, it could. Now what we're looking at here is the Amiga version of the third game in this series called Shadowgate. And this one, as you can probably tell, is a fantasy Dungeons & Dragons-like experience. I really love this game when I was a kid. Spent hours and hours trying to solve it, days, weeks. Of course, this was the days before you could just hop online and get hints. And I was never able to complete this game, just got stuck. But later on, I was able to finish it on the Nintendo version, which I'll show here in a second. But the big thing about this game that's kind of a pain is this business with the torches. So you're always having to collect these torches, and they go out. And if they go out, you're in the dark. You may be able to get somewhere to relight them, but you're probably dead. But anyway, there's lots of creative puzzles here. It's probably a bit more cliche than Deja Vu and maybe Uninvited. But still lots of fun. Now here we have, of course, the Nintendo version, and as you can hear, there's music, which is nice, can get a bit repetitive. But what I find really impressive about this version is how well they were able to adapt this complicated icon, Windows, mouse-driven interface into something that works pretty well with just the Nintendo's controller. This is a very playable version. The graphics are good. You can tell they put a lot of effort and energy into this. Unfortunately, we're out of time, so I won't be able to show you some of the follow-ups. These were not made by the original team, of course. But here's one called Beyond Shadowgate for the TurboGrafx CD. It's a very weird, I don't know what they were really thinking here. Seems to be sort of a cross between a game like Double Dragon and Lure of the Temptress, if you remember that one. And that's all for this week's Match Chat. But remember, I feel like I've said that before.